Hello everyone, welcome back to Tina Teach Python projects. Today we'll be making a speed typing test. Okay, we're gonna see how many words per minute we can actually type. And it's a relatively simple program that if you follow this tutorial, you basically don't need to, go to online test sites to test how many words per minute you can actually type. You can do that within the convenience of your own code. Okay. First, we're gonna set up our program by importing some very much needed libraries, which are tkinter. Okay, tkinter is the go-to Python library whenever you want to incorporate graphical user interface elements. Okay, we're talking windows, we're talking graphs, we're talking buttons, lines, images. Right? Tkinter is typically the one that you go to, and it is a bit long. Tkinter, if you type it again and again, it will get tired. So you can actually give essentially nicknames to these libraries in which you can refer to them by their nickname in your code instead of their actual name. All you need to do is put in as, and I'm going to say tk, import tkinter as tk from time it import default timer. So we're just importing a specific part of a library, not the whole library, as timer. Oops, should not have click enter on that, as timer. And then import random because we need to generate some random numbers. All right, we have tkinter for the graphical user interface. We have the default timer for timer, and then we have the random number generator because we need to, we're measuring the time it takes for us to type out something and then random in order to generate random sentences that we can continuously type. Let's go ahead and define a class. I'm going to say typing test. And in this typing test, in it, self root pass for now. And then let's have another function, set up UI, self pass, check check score, self pass, and then restart test pass. Okay, let's go through each of these, and I'm going to briefly explain what they do. So this one initializes the Python application and user interface. This one, as the name suggested, it's set up the graphical user interface. And this one, check for the score in order to calculate the words per minute. Calculates words per minute. And this one, restart the test, right? Restart the test and start with a new sentence, okay? Let's work on this function first. Self root equals to root, self root title. If you're uncertain as to why, as to what self means, self just basically refers to the function itself. Okay, so self root title, we give it a title. Typing test. That's it. Typing test. Self root geometry. We're gonna give it a dimension. Let's say 900 to 900. So basically a square. self sentence. Um, so this is a sort of a set of sentences that we can use to test our words per minute. This is basically, these random. Well, they're not random; they're predetermined, random as in their, generation and their order that are gonna pop up. The moment we finish one, another one's gonna pop up, and we're gonna do that again and again and again to test our words per minute. So let me think of a good sentence. I'm gonna go ahead and use a bunch of quotes. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and use a bunch of quotes. I've learned that people, we're gonna make it a bit long, will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never let's wrap this. People will never forget how you made them feel. That's one. Let's go with another one. Mm, to live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is Oscar Wilde, very dramatic. Um, it is better to be hated for what you are than to be loved for what you are not. Okay, we have three already. Let's move on with self. Start time. Not yet, none. Self setup UI, and we'll keep it empty. Okay, so we have the title, we have the dimension, we have the sentences that we can type out, start time, and setup UI. This one will keep track of the time it takes us to type out one of these sentences. This one initializes the graphical user interface. As simple as that. Let's move on to this function over here, and it's going to be a bit long because we are working with graphical elements. So it does get a little bit wordy. Let's set up the components, set up UI components. Self sentence equals to random choice self sentence. Generate basically take these three sentences that we have here and put them in randomized order so we don't have to type the same thing again and again. Self label sentence equals to tk label. Self root text equals to self sentence. Font, let's say I'm going to choose monospace for the font. Monospace 15, that is the font size. All right. Wrap length is 500, so we don't go out of the screen. It wraps to a new line. Self label sentence pack patty 20. Actually, I'm gonna make it 30. And then down here, let's have some spacing. Self label prompt. This time we can give out the instruction as to what to do. TK label self root text. Please type the following sentence to calculate words per minute. And then assigned the font monospace, and this one is a little bit smaller. I'm gonna make it 11. My mistake here, I forgot to put this in parentheses. Okay, moving on with self label prompt dot pack self entry. For now, let's just type these out, and then I'm going to explain them once we're done. Self entry tk entry self root width width is 50. Self entry pack patty 10. Self entry fine return we return to, well, not return to. So moving on with lambda event self check results. And what this does is that when we press enter, we're done. Enter to submit, right? So whenever you finish typing a sentence, you press enter, okay, calculate, and then move on to the next sentence. We're not done yet with setting up the user interface. Self button done. We're creating a button here. TK button self root text submit command self check result width. The width of the button is, let's say, 13. Background is pink. Self button done. Pack patty 5. Self button retry, the retry button. TK button self root text restart, right? Retry button restart. Command self reset test with 11. Background self button retry pack make this also 5. We're keeping the buttons, unanimous here. Self result label our words per minute. TK, oops, that is not correct. TK label self root. We're keeping this empty because we don't know the result beforehand, right? Therefore, we cannot input anything here. Font, monospace 12. Self result label pack patty 20, and then self start time equals to timer. Keep this empty for now. Start the timer when the UI finishes loading. All right, moving on to self-sentence random choice. This is, I hope it's obvious enough. It basically goes through this and display them in a random order for you to type. So when you finish typing one, another one will appear instead of typing the same thing again and again. Self label sentence, this over here, it shows the sentence, but if the sentence is too long, it nicely display it with a word wrap. Self entry over here is the space where you will type out the sentence, and when you're done, you simply need to enter for it to be submitted, and the results be calculated words per minute and returned to you. And the next sentence is randomly generated. Here we have the submit button for when we're done, and then the retry button for when we want to restart the test. Over here for the result label, it either gives you the words per minute or an error message if perhaps you didn't type in the sentence correctly. And start timer start the time when the UI finishes loading. So the typing duration is tracked the moment of the UI loads. It's a lot of text, but once you break it down, it's actually quite straightforward and simple. Okay, it's Tkinter. It's a bit wordy, but it's not rocket science. Since we're done with the user graphical interface, we're going to move on to the check score function. This is where we calculate the words per minute. Type text self entry dot get if type text equals to self sentence end time equals to timer time taken round end time minus self start time 2. Just bear with me, I'm going to explain it in a little bit. Words equals to length self sentence split. Words per minute equals to round words divided by time taken and then times by 62. Self result label configuration text equals to f times this the format, all right? Time taken. So we're replacing our calculation and put it in a formatted sentence. Time taken sec words per minute equals to words per minute, and then the foreground is else self result label config text incorrect, please type again foreground red, so it's error, right? So this neat variable over here, type text, takes the input from the user. So when you type in a sentence that was generated, it takes that input and it processes it. Okay, and time timer time taken. Then it will compare that input to the sentence that was generated. If they do match, it's a success. If they don't, it counts as a failure, incorrect. So this will be displayed if you did not type in properly. And end time timer records the time when you finish typing, and the time taken computes the time difference in seconds, counts the length of the sentence, so the number of words in that sentence, words per minute calculates words per minute calculates, then this label would provide the words per minute calculation as well as the time taken in yellow for you if your input does match the sentence. Otherwise, incorrect, please type again in red. Last but not least, let's finish this function restart test. Self sentence equals to random choice self sentences. Self label sentence config text equals to self sentence. Self entry delete 0 tk dot n clear input. Self result label config text is nothing because we restarted. Self start time timer restart the timer. Self sentence random choice self sentences gives the user a new sentence to type instead of repeating the same one that they did. Label sentence config refreshes the user interface with the new sentence provided by this first code. This removes any words, any letter, any input that you've previously typed in the input field. This ensures that old results are not shown for the new test. We start anew completely, and then the timer over here tracks the time for the new attempt. Now that we're done with all of the functions, let's create a main instance that we can run our application and actually, work with it. If name main root tk.tk app typing test root main loop. This part makes sure that the script is only run when it is executed and not when it is imported as a module. And root main loop starts the event loop and then changing the UI based on the user input, whether or not they want to submit, they want to restart, or see the results and so forth. All right, let's go through our code one more time before we run it and work with it. First off, we initiate class typing test. In here, we give out the title of the window, well, the window that's going to show typing test, as well as the dimension of the window, and we have a list of all of the sentences that will be randomly go through in a random order, of course, for us to type out, so we don't need to type the same thing again and again. And we have our timer, as well as setting up our user interface. The timer is necessary because we are counting words per minute. Setup UI. Remember that self refers to the function itself. Sentence random choice. Basically, shuffle these, right? Like a Spotify playlist, shuffle these in a random order. Label, sentence, display the sentence chosen in this font, font size, as well as wrap length. And then we will display, please type the following sentence to calculate words per minute in this font and size. So this serves as an instruction. And whenever we're done, we can press the enter keyboard to submit and move on. And we have two buttons here. We have the finish button, so the done button that we can trigger in order to submit our input with the following width and the pink background. For retry, we restart the test, and the background is blue, as well as 11 width. So it's a bit smaller than the finish button. And as for the result, we don't have the result just yet. The result needs to be calculated after the user is done typing. Therefore, we don't put anything here. It's just empty with monospace 12 size and start timer. The timer will kickstart immediately once the UI finishes loading. So obviously we don't have any time to prep. Immediately we just have to type. And for checking results, we take the user input, basically the sentence that we typed out, and we compare it to the sentence itself up here, and then see whether or not they match each other. If they do match each other, and the timer calculate, the time it takes for us to type all of that, as well as the total amount of words, and then calculate the words per minute based on those metrics and display the result in yellow. If our input does not match with the sentence, we go with incorrect, please type again, as an error message in red. Last but not least, we have the restart test. Randomly generate the sentences so we don't have to type the same thing, and delete the entry, clear the input so we're working with a clean slate, and start the timer one more time. After all of that, we create an instance where we can run this continuously. Now, this is, so I'm going to take some time to introduce to you the graphical interface. Obviously, this is going to count into my words per minute, but that's not our concern right now. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is all. That is our sentence that was randomly generated, and we have the title right over here. 900 by 900, that is the dimension that we gave. We have the submit button and the restart button, and the restart button is a little bit smaller than the submit button, and this is our input field. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is all. Okay, it's very hard to see now since this is yellow. Let's go back and change it to black, and let's run this again. I've learned, as you can see, we start with a completely new sentence, that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Press enter. We get the time and we get the words per minute. Now we can press submit again, and the results will be newly calculated because the timer is still tracking us. Restart the time, and when I press restart over here, I can see the error popping up in my terminal. Typing test object has no attribute sentences. Did you mean sentence? Let's go to that line, and so 57, right? 57, our mistake right over here. Now let's close this and let's run this again. That's why you need the terminal open. It helps you debug. So when I click submit there, incorrect, please type again because I haven't typed in anything. Let's move on with to live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is all. Enter. I get 61 words per minute. Restart. If you run it again, you get a new thing. Learn that, people will get what you said, people will get what you did, how you made them feel. So that's it for today's lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and you learned something new. It's a bit long, it's a bit complicated, it's something new. Taking through, we haven't worked with it before. Obviously, we're going to revisit it because, it's the thing, the typical thing that you go to for graphical user interface. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Learn today, better tomorrow, and have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in.